If Bill Gates disagrees with you, you should seriously consider changing your opinion to whatever Bill Gates said. He is credible. He's not in it for the money. He's a genius, and he's looked into it. So that's my advice. So he says this path is the way to get to the, I'm calling it the golden age when things are going well. And there are other people who think that this might be the better approach. But I would argue to you, and here's my reveal. I would bet that most of the people who think this is the best path also think, and this is an assumption, so let's fact check this, the people who think this is the best path also think that nuclear means old nuclear. I'll bet there are very few people who want this path who know as much as Bill Gates does about this path. And that the people who understand that this exists and what it could do for us if we manage it correctly, the people who know this would take this path every time. So my current view is that we do have a path that works whether you think climate change is real or not. It's practical. The smartest people in the world agree with it, and it is the lowest risk. Here's a flowchart to tell you how to think about it. All right? So there are two possibilities. Either climate change is a crisis or something closer to a hoax. Now, I'm using the extreme words, but we can imagine there are things in between as well. But just for conceptual purposes, let's say there are two views of the world. One is it's a crisis, and one is that it's not. Now, what do you do under those conditions? Well, if it's a crisis, you've got essentially two paths. One path is something like the Green New Deal, and I use that as a proxy for any kind of a plan that's an extreme get rid of fossil fuels plan. So any extreme plan to get rid of fossil fuels, I'll just use this as a proxy because it includes that. Or the people who believe that climate warming is a huge risk would be safe nuclear. Now, safe nuclear is the so-called Generation 4, and there are a number of different nuclear power plants designs. It's not just one thing. There's several designs that are under Generation 4. And what they have in common is that they're designed to avoid meltdown problems. In other words, everything could go wrong, and you still wouldn't get a meltdown because they're designed that way. They can also be built smaller and faster. The details of that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, whether you're talking about thorium or any of these other designs, if they're under the umbrella of Generation 4, they would be safe nuclear. And if you did a Manhattan Project to iterate these and test and maybe standardize them and put them next to existing nuclear plants, because essentially people are comfortable with that already. So there's a way to get there by getting real serious about safe nuclear. Now, what nobody wants, apparently I don't think anybody on either end of the conversation wants the legacy nuclear option, where it takes 30 years to even try to build a plant. It's got a meltdown risk. Nobody wants that, right? It's not a practical option. So legacy nuclear, the classic old kind of nuclear, is not on anybody's wish board. But the safe stuff would be on both. It wouldn't matter if you believed that the climate is a problem or if you believed it wasn't, because it's still a great idea for lowering costs, making the world a better place, ending pollution, making electric cars ubiquitous. So there are all kinds of benefits whether you think the climate is a problem or not. Now let's do some odds. All right. If you do the Green New Deal or anything that's let's say a crushing impact on fossil fuels, nobody really knows if that's good or bad for the economy. I know you didn't want me to say that, right? You wanted me to say, "Oh, that's bad for the economy." But it turns out that there are smart people, and I'm not going to name any, but there's a very smart billionaire investor who has put a lot of money into green energy and tells me personally that he believes that doing so is a positive economic thing, and that you create a lot of jobs, you create new industries, etc., and you could actually come out ahead by not necessarily the Green New Deal, but by being very aggressive on green technology. So, is it true that the Green New Deal would cause an economic collapse, or is it true that it would actually, at least just the fossil fuel portion of it, I'm not talking about the rest of the socialism involved with the Green New Deal, but just the fossil fuel part of it, would that cause economic gain or collapse? I would say I have no idea. But let's say, since I have no idea, I'll just 50-50 it, which is what I always do when I have no idea. No idea. I don't know if it's 60-40, 90-10, I have no idea. I could tell you that very smart people are on both sides of this conversation, and they don't know either. So let's just say for conceptual reasons, I'm not going to claim it's 50-50, but for conceptual reasons, let's say it is, just to complete the picture. So if you get economic gain, that's great, and it leads you to the golden age where everything's great. But if you get economic collapse, you end up with mass extinction. So economic collapse means that not only does the United States economy collapse, but probably China is still polluting and adding CO2 at the same rate no matter what. So you get economic collapse if you're wrong about this. All right? If you're right, everything's great. But let's say you go this path. It wouldn't matter if you thought the economy was a problem or not. You go with safe nuclear. You do a Manhattan Project where you really put a lot of focus on it, a lot of attention. Do it as fast as you can, but as safely as you can. There's probably about a 95% chance that this would be profitable, meaning good for the economy. Because we know how to make these plants. We know they're safe. We know they're economical. These are mostly knowns. You would need some government help to get rid of some red tape, but it's known what it would look like if you did that. And so this would be an almost certain economic gain, which would lead you to the golden age. And so here's the bottom line. No matter what you think about climate change, whether it's a big problem or not a problem, the rational path is the same path. It still makes sense to develop as much green technology, green energy as you can. So this is where billionaires disagree, but not on that point. So Bill Gates, I believe, would be here. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I know he has invested in some Gen 4 companies. And I know he's talked about green not being enough to save us, and that maybe the only way to get there is by being aggressive on nuclear. I hope I'm characterizing his argument correctly. Now, here's a general statement. If your opinion disagrees with Bill Gates' opinion, change your opinion. If your opinion disagrees with Warren Buffett's opinion, change your opinion. That's my advice. Anytime I see Bill Gates disagree with me, I go, oh, damn it, I got to change my opinion. Because he's smarter than you. He's smarter than me, definitely. He's way more informed, and he's deeply researched a lot of different stuff, right? He has a wide umbrella of understanding. If Bill Gates disagrees with you, you should seriously consider changing your opinion to whatever Bill Gates said. He is credible. He's not in it for the money. He's a genius, and he's looked into it. So that's my advice. So he says this path is the way to get to I'm calling it the golden age when things are going well. And there are other people who think that this might be the better approach. But I would argue to you, and here's my reveal. I would bet that most of the people who think this is the best path also think, and this is an assumption, so let's fact check this, the people who think this is the best path also think that nuclear means old nuclear. I'll bet there are very few people who want this path who know as much as Bill Gates does about this path. And that the people who understand that this exists and what it could do for us if we manage it correctly, the people who know this would take this path every time. So that's my claim. And I like to say that all of these periscopes are starting points for fact-checking and starting points for just testing the hypothesis. So my current view is that we do have a path that works whether you think climate change is real or not. It's practical. The smartest people in the world agree with it, and it is the lowest risk. And the other path is probably not practical. It might be, but probably not. And riskier. What's the downside risk for Gen 4? The downside risk is the category of things you don't know. I didn't want to make it 100% because it would be less credible if I did. I don't like to talk in absolutes, and 95% is only my number, so that's to be fact checked. Is it 80%? I don't know, but it's still good odds. Much depends on spent fuel management. My understanding is that one of the designs that's under this umbrella of Gen 4 actually burns nuclear waste from other plants. I'm not sure that I'm saying that right or that I have the information right, but most of what you think are problems with nuclear have actually been solved with various designs within this category. It's been a long time that people have been working on these designs, and they're in good shape now. Yeah, somebody here says Generation 4 actually consumes spent nuclear fuel. And I don't think that's true of maybe every design here, but I think there are designs within Gen 4 that do that. And you don't have to wait for fusion. Fusion is something you can work on at the same time because this is accessible and doable right now.